It is March 3rd, 2020, and it's another edition of the Tip-Off Show here, powered by Wager Talk. Thanks for joining us here on this Tuesday. I'm Jared Smith. Please follow me on Twitter at Jared Lee Smith. I got my guys flanked with me, as usual, Ralph Michaels. Follow him on Twitter at CalSportsLV. And, of course, Drew Martin. You can follow him at Drew Martin Bets. And, of course, don't forget, before we get started, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Wager Talk TV, and also be sure to check out our homepages, wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com, where it's an exciting day. It's $2 Tuesdays as we release plays for $2, so you can pick the hottest handicapper. We pick the hottest handicapper, and we offer him for a generous $2. Ralph, I want to bring in first. Light Monday, but still a fun Monday, an entertaining Monday. How are things going for you so far here on Tuesday?
Doing great. I want to expand on the $2 Tuesday, Jared, because
it's a good thing to expand on.
We tried something new for the first time in Wager Talk and Sports Memo history, and we're having a crossover day. And the crossover day simply means this. We took one of the best handicappers from Sports Memo, a guy that you'll be seeing here on the screen in a minute, Drew Martin. Drew Martin has his top totals play of the day going tonight. You can get that at Wager Talk for $2. And then Sports Memo, Don Buster, 5-1 his last 6 5% plays in the NHL. You can go there and get his top hockey play for just $2. So we see crossovers on CSI and some of these other shows, and we got a crossover today between Wager Talk and Sports Memo. So check out Drew's big college basketball totals play. $2, what a deal!
Drew, how's your crossover game, buddy? Are you more of a jump shooter, or you got the crossover too?
I was more of a jump shooter, I guess you could say. More of a defensive player, but a team guy at the end of it, Jared. But no, tonight's game, locked and loaded, man. Feel confident in it. It's a good one, nationally televised game, so you can watch and hopefully win tonight. So really excited about tonight's matchup, man.
Hey,
Good
Jared.
stuff. Yeah, what do you got for us, Ralph?
Why didn't you ask me what my crossover game was like?
Did
you think of Wes Unseld and Rolf was slower and bigger than that?
I was thinking more Hoosiers. Like, you were the guy that came off the bench in Hoosiers and hit the game-winning shot to win the Indiana State title, right? That was kind of what I was more thinking there.
Good deal. Thanks.
All right, so be sure to head to sportsmemo.com, wagertalk.com. Check out all the $2 Tuesday crossovers we got. There's better crossover games on the website than we do have here on the pod. But there were some good crossover games last night. And one of the games in particular that really kind of stole the show, maybe a little bit closer than expected, was Baylor and Texas Tech. That game went to overtime. Texas Tech, no stranger to overtimes like what we saw in the national championship, but they, similar to that game against Virginia, they fell to Baylor last night. So Baylor gets a big home win. Didn't see a whole lot of upsets last night, Ralph, but we did see something interesting between Idaho State and Weber State that's certainly worth noting on a light card.
Yeah, those over trends held true by just about a basket, but we'll see a light card all across, really just those 3 regular games plus the rotations. But, Texas Tech, as we saw, young team, can play with anyone, but when it comes down to those big plays, they just didn't make them as well as Baylor. And as far as Duke goes, I think the first half caught a lot of people by surprise,
Me too.
With Duke's first half performance. But they did what they had to do down the stretch, and you saw Coach K running down the first row, high-fiving or low-fiving everyone. So, it's surprising as a 12-point favorite. He was that excited to win that game, but he knew they needed that second half to respond and move forward.
Yeah, and Drew, both of us gave out the over in that game last night as the best bets. It was looking, I don't want to say tenuous early, but Duke really struggled from the floor early in that game. They were 1 of 12 to start the game. They turned it over 8 times in the first half. And then in the second half, they dropped a 50-burger, and they really kind of opened up things a little bit. And they went zone, which certainly helped. But in the end, Duke just kind of showed that they were better than NC State, which is kind of what everyone expected. But maybe a little bit of a surprise there in the first half from the Wolfpack.
Yeah, especially on the road. Duke, like we talked about on yesterday's show, and it's always nice to kind of hit these totals in an over here with Duke. And when they want to put the pedal to the metal offensively, it really shows. I mean, Duke and overs when they're in rhythm on offense have been really money this year, Jared. So it's something I got them circled as a bet on and an over bet going forward. And also that Texas Tech Baylor game, man. You're going to talk about totals betting, unders betters. I feel like it was the right side, just 120 at the end of regulation. You get OT'd. It's part of it. But, I really think that Texas Tech Baylor game speaks to how these teams coming into March Madness, it slows down, more defensive minded. So you got to kind of remember that when you're betting totals going into March.
Yeah, it was funny. The Texas Tech team total, which I was given a hard look at yesterday, was 61, and it was 60-60 heading into overtime. So, if Baylor hits a shot down the stretch, under bettors probably get that cash last night. But that's college basketball. Something tells me we're going to be seeing a lot more of that over the next couple weeks as some of these conference tournament games heat up. No conference tournament games that we're going to talk about in our market mover segment tonight, but I do think there are a couple of games that are certainly worth circling. Let's start out in the MAC. And there's a couple of totals that are really intriguing me in the MAC, Ralph. The CMU Ball State game. So usually we're used to seeing a lot of overs in this conference. It seems like a good over conference. But in this particular case, it's the under that's getting all the love. 142.5 is where this total opened, down to 139.5 tonight. 77% of the action on the under. So it certainly seems warranted by the money. But is that move? Does that surprise you at all, considering that big of a move in what's a relatively low total in this conference?
Yeah, it is. But when you look at these two teams, I think the line just opened up a little too high. So no argument with the move as it stands.
Bowling Green, Kent State. This one's a more intriguing one because we're seeing 95% of the action on the over in this game. Total at 146.5 is where it opened. We're actually seeing it go down in a couple of spots. I'm seeing a 145.5 at CG. All the money on the over there, but maybe a little bit of reverse line move to the under. Is the under a sneaky play in this game?
Drew or me?
Go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
Yep.
I don't really have an opinion on the Bowling Green Kent State game. I mean, it's moved a point towards the under. I guess I would just speak to either respected better betting on this under or like you kind of touched on maybe more of the money going on it.
Interesting. Drew, the ACC kind of intriguing tonight, too. We're seeing UNC go from 6 to 8 in the marketplace with 64% of the action on the Tar Heels in this game. UNC coming off that big win over Syracuse. Is that move warranted considering what we've seen from the Tar Heels of late?
I believe so. I mean, Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons aren't necessarily a team I'm looking to bet on. Plus the fact this one, an ACC matchup, we know North Carolina. And what they've been able to do offensively, 152. One thing of note when Wake plays, we've talked about it before, they're a team that will start fouling very early in the matchup. So even though if you bet this game towards the under, a lot of times when that happens, you can kind of take it on the chin because it will go over in those last 5 minutes, Jared, with just kind of a foul fest. And the point spread here, -8, North Carolina at home, that very much speaks towards that range of a team starting to foul early, watch out. So that would point me really towards the over of 152 in Wake, North Carolina tonight.
Drew, that's a great point. When you look at Wake Forest, that's how they came back against Duke. Now, the amazing thing is when Wake Forest upset Duke in 2 overtimes, they were down, 9 with just under a minute to go. And the surprising thing is Duke made 31 of 34 free throws. I mean, that's an incredible amount for a team that made a comeback, but they slowed the clock. The clock wasn't moving. They got Duke to the free throw. They came down and hit some threes and got back in the game. But to talk to your game, that Wake Forest Duke game in double overtime, there were 84 free throws in that game. Can you imagine sitting through 84 free throws? That game took, 3.5 hours?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like the Demon Deacons towards the over, to what you're saying, Ralph, I believe, it's something I'm going to bet tonight, Wake, North Carolina over. Plus the fact, college basketball, down the stretch, it's kind of boring, man, when they do that. I don't really like that. I think almost the sport needs to look into changing that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and of course that's actually one of the things I really look at when I'm handicapping teams in the tournament is how well they shoot free throws and how many times they get to the line, and those are things that usually correlate with teams that cover the numbers, especially when they're bigger dogs, especially a mid-major team that's a big dog in a game. If they can shoot free throws late and if they can get to the line, that's always something to keep in mind. So maybe the free throw line has a factor in this big line tonight down on Tobacco Road. All right, a couple underdogs I want to talk about tonight because a couple of them caught my eye in the marketplace. We'll start with the and Texas. Fun game tonight in Norman. So Oklahoma open as a 6.5-point favorite. They've moved to 7. However, 70% of the money is on Texas. We know Texas is playing well, Ralph, but are they playing this well enough to overcome what's a tough environment in Norman tonight and the line now moving against them?
Well, Texas has cost me money. They lost a starter earlier. They lost their 2 bigs, and what do? They go on this huge run and pull a couple upsets. But I might say nobody in the country is playing better than Oklahoma for a team that lost 3 games. Because you beat West Virginia, you beat Iowa State, you beat Texas Tech, you beat West Virginia again on the road, and losing at Kansas and losing to Baylor aren't bad. So, it's a game where I give Lon Kruger a ton of credit. We know the Big Ten, we know the Big Ten, the Big East, and the Big 12 are those 3 conferences that you can just get beat up night after night after night. But Oklahoma's a team I have circled. I just don't want to lay this many points in their home finale. This is only their first home game since February 18th. Yeah. They played a game where OKC plays, and you're off an away game, and you have an away game at TCU. So senior night, depending on how many seniors you have, there are often times that teams get off to a slow start because of the pageantry. Yep. Now, they only have 1 starter who's a senior in Doolittle, and really, he's the only senior on the team, so it may not affect them as much as some teams, but certainly something you have to look at moving forward.
Yeah, and if there's anybody that can kind of overcome this, it's Lon Kruger. Very, very underrated coach. Of course, they did win a game in the tournament last year, and I believe, they lost to Virginia. That was actually a tighter game than people thought. And I think actually Oklahoma barely covered that number against Virginia last year in the NCAA tournament. So interesting stuff there with Oklahoma tonight. I don't know. Texas seems a little trendy to me. I feel like Shaka Smart's probably coaching for his job, but they haven't done well in these pressure spots this season. So I actually would lean Oklahoma. Maybe Oklahoma, if you think they're going to get off to a slower start because of senior night, then maybe you can bet them in the second half, or maybe hop on them live. The other interesting dog tonight, Drew. This one's right up your alley. It's in the SEC. So Tennessee at Kentucky tonight. Volunteers open +9, down to +8.5. So the movement is going towards Tennessee, despite 72% of the action on Kentucky. And for those of you new bettors, this is a very sharp sign of reverse line movement, meaning everyone's betting on one side, but the line, even though it's only down 0.5 point, is moving in the other direction. Kentucky looked good against Auburn, but Auburn had some chances to cover that game. Do you think the Volunteers can cover a number tonight, 8.5 in Lexington at Rupp Arena?
Can they? Sure. Will they? I don't think so. I'm not looking to step in front of this John Calipari Kentucky team. Jared, I mean, they've put together 8-9 wins in a row. They've just been unstoppable in the SEC. I think that they're the SEC's most talented roster, best team. I think they can make a run to possibly even the national championship. Tennessee, on the other hand, yes, a nice win against Florida, like you said, but before that, when they've been going against the top teams in the SEC, they've kind of struggled a little bit. Defensively, pretty efficient, but not a team that's going to go up pace very much. They do knock down their free throws, but still, overall talent disparity, it would be Kentucky or pass for me, man.
Hey, Jared, I just want to jump in there for 1 second. Sure. And this really is the classic situation of people see Kentucky, people see they're 24-5, people see that they're 12-1 their last 13 games. You're facing a Tennessee squad that is only 16-13, is only 8-8 in conference play, and it's on TV. So the new players in March here, that we get a lot of new players and a lot of the public starts betting the favorites. But when the casino gets 1 or 2 respected bets from someone on Tennessee, they're going to move the line. A bunch of $20, $50, and $100 bets is not going to move the needle. And while there may be 80 or 90% of the people betting Kentucky, one or two sharps that the casinos are aware of start betting the underdog, and the line's going to move. Kentucky 16-1 straight up as a favorite, but still only 8-9 against the spread in that roll.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can lay with Kentucky tonight. I like Kentucky a lot in the futures market. I think Kentucky has a chance to make a run in the NCAA tournament. They've already clinched the 1 seed in the SEC. That's in lockstep already. I don't see them caring as much as Tennessee does in this particular. Like, this is the Super Bowl for Rick Barnes. Tennessee has not had a signature win this season. They're actually coming off of a nice win against Florida. That's not a signature win like beating a top 10 Kentucky team would be on the road. Tennessee, this is an interesting spot for Tennessee. I would be willing to bet money that Kelly is probably betting Tennessee in this matchup. She loves these contrarian dogs, and this one smells like one tonight. The fact that the line is moving towards Tennessee. Ralph, any TNA you've got for us tonight? Big card, thick card. What's the trends? What's the angles going on here on Tuesday?
Absolutely. Let me pull one up, and I've got a quiz for you guys because you know that I like putting you guys.
Love the
spot.
Quizzes.
All right, so positive ATS record or negative ATS record when a team is a home dog, they're off a road game, and their opponent is off an overtime game. So Troy tonight is a home dog of 5.5. Troy played on the road their last game against South Alabama, and Arlington is off an overtime game. Positive ATS record or negative ATS record for the home dog?
Drew, do you want to take it?
I'd say positive.
I would say positive too, but the fact that you're teasing it up this way, it means it's probably negative.
I know. I've learned that within this.
All right. No. I've already cracked the code after 3 shows, Ralph.
Yeah.
Pay attention. 27-3 against the spread.
Yeah. All right. So that's really good.
90% for the home dog.
Wow.
Yeah.
Smells like a best bet to me.
Now,
what's the sample size on that? How far back?
It's going back to a year and a half, December 4th of 2019.
Okay.
31 games. And just to make it a little bit stronger, in college, I can't do multiple overtimes, but Troy's a home dog. Texas Arlington is off a brutal 3 overtime game. So not only 1 overtime, they were off 3 overtimes.
Wow. I've called games at Trojan Arena. I used to work in the Sun Belt, and that arena gets raucous. So I'm not surprised that I don't know how Troy has played in their home gym this year, but that gym can get interesting. So, that's not one of those sleepy gyms in the Sun Belt. If they pack that thing, and I know it's a Tuesday night, so maybe not, but that gym can get interesting. All right, good stuff there. Interesting top matchups tonight, and I'm glad that we didn't have any moves or any prior things to discuss in the Big Ten, because I think the Big Ten really is taking center stage tonight. We'll start with my alma mater, Penn State. Tough game for them tonight. Really tough matchup. They are favored slightly, or actually, no, they open as a favorite. Now they're actually an underdog. But it's basically a pick'em game. I want to say the last I saw it was either -1 or -1.5. They're hosting Michigan State tonight, and Michigan State is red hot, guys. The Spartans really seem to be kind of clicking on all cylinders right now. I love them in the futures market. Ralph, I'll start with you. What's your thoughts on this Michigan State-Penn State matchup tonight in Happy Valley?
Well, Michigan State's a team that, I bet a futures on as well. And, when you look at Ken Palm ratings, and a lot of people look at Ken Palm ratings, there are only 2 teams in the Big Ten that have top 20 offense and defensive efficiency rankings. That's Michigan State. That's Ohio State. So to me, both teams that are at home are playing with a lot of pressure when I say Penn State and Rutgers. I think both teams are in the same situation. They have success after years of not being the hunted. They now have the bullseye on their back. Who do they have coming into them tonight? Both of the best teams in the Big Ten, in my opinion, Maryland and Michigan State. So, I look at Michigan State and you have, you said it well yesterday, besides Dotson and Azubuike, you probably have the best point guard center combo in the country in Winston and Tillman. You have a defensive efficiency of number 12 in the country. You have a team that's a top 50 team in free throws. You have probably the best March Madness coach, or one of the top 2 or 3 in the country in Izzo. You have a team that just knocked off Maryland on the road, so they have all the confidence in the world. So, I love Penn State. I think it's a great story what Penn State and Rutgers have done, but I think the cream rises here and Michigan State gets it done.
Yeah, I totally agree. I hate to say it, but I might be betting against my alma mater tonight. But hey, money talks. Drew, Penn State, the last time they actually faced Michigan State, they won in East Lansing. Myron Jones hit 6 triples in that game, which was a career high. But since that game, I think it was February 4th. I think it was actually right around the Super Bowl. He hadn't played. I want to say he missed either 6 or 7 straight games with an illness. He came back on Saturday against Iowa, and he did not shoot well. And Penn State needs to shoot well in order to win this game. But Michigan State's got a really good 3-point defense. Do you agree with the assessment that the Spartans are the better side tonight?
I do. I think Sparty's the side tonight. And if you're looking to get involved in this Big Ten game, it's on another game on nationally televised game here, Jared. We got Michigan State. Like when you talked about their last game against Penn State right around the Super Bowl, that was a different Michigan State team, man. They lost 3 straight. They weren't playing really good basketball. Now they're playing really good basketball. Beating Nebraska and then going on to beat Iowa and Maryland. Maryland on the road. That's a huge win. One of the bigger wins in the country, actually. We talk about their guard play coming into March. That's something I'm looking to bet on. Plus the fact, you touched on free throws, man. Look at Michigan State, 75%. Penn State under that 70% mark, going to the line here in a tightly contested matchup, man. I like Sparty.
Yeah, go ahead, Ralph.
Michigan State again. We like sharing the numbers when I go to the database, even though sometimes they don't tell you much. In the last 3 seasons, Michigan State's only lost 4 home games. They've gone 1-2 in those games in revenge. So, it's not an automatic. You think, oh, well, Michigan State has home loss revenge. It happens so infrequently, they don't even know what to do.
Yeah, and it's something, and this isn't something we really handicap often, but I think it holds a lot of weight this season for Michigan State and their not only their hopes tonight, but I think in the future as well. Cassius Winston, lost his brother in a tragic train accident, like right before the season started. So I can understand why the first month or 2 of the season was a little rocky for him. He's their best player, and he goes, as far as he goes, that's how far Michigan State will go this year. He's really starting to play well. He ticked it up in the second half of that Maryland game. He took over that game. And when he plays like that, I don't think there's a lot of teams in the country that can hang with the Spartans. They are priced right now as probably the 10th favorite. If Winston is playing at that level, they're just as good as Kansas. So keep a close eye on the Spartans, not only this week, next week in Indy, but also in the NCAA tournament as well.
One more note on Michigan State. Sure. Sorry. Okay. Let's not forget, too, that for the first part of the year, they thought they were going to get Joshua Langford back.
Yes.
And they kept waiting for him. And so, just finally in January, they got to reset and say, okay, we know we're not getting Langford back. Let's go through our rotation. This is the rotation we know has to get us there. So early in the Big Ten, they were still trying to figure out who they were as a team and getting those guys to fit into the pieces parts.
Yeah, and I'm fat. I was talking about it last week. Once I saw, and it was actually, there was exact one moment in that game against Maryland on Saturday night. Winston hit a 60-foot half-court shot at the buzzer at halftime, and like to kind of, give them a bigger lead at half. And the bench just the way that they reacted to that, I was like, man, this team, with all the things that have happened to Winston and how good they are and how talented they are, people forgot about how much they were being touted preseason. Man, this is going to be a tough out, and they were in the Final Four last year. They're certainly no strangers to playing in big games, and they're going to be a tough out, not only next week but in the NCAA tournament. I really bulked up my futures positions on Michigan State. Maryland Rutgers, another good game in the Big Ten. I think Maryland's another one of those teams that has the talent to compete, but they have not strung it together for 40 minutes. They're actually underdogs tonight in Piscataway, which is kind of a surprising number, Ralph. But Rutgers has earned that at home. They've been one of the best teams in the country at the rack. Do you think Maryland, as a short pooch tonight, has some value against Rutgers?
Yeah, and I actually got to the window with my money. I didn't even need to borrow money off Joe for this. So, that's the running joke we had. So when Drew and I didn't feel like we could bet our money, we just borrowed Joe's because he has so much of it. But
oh yeah, he's loaded now.
I am going to double dip here, Jared, and talk about this game and tell you this is also my best bet. This is one of the 2 plays that I released to my customers. I did already bet. And I love fading teams like Rutgers down the stretch that have pressure. They've lost 3 straight games. They lost their undefeated home record at the RAC when they're off a loss to Michigan. For 3 straight years under this head coach, they've had losing records. They always were the team that no one paid attention to. Now you have Maryland completely focused on Rutgers. You have Maryland off a home loss to Michigan State, which I think favors the better team. And, one interesting note, I almost used the first half in this game instead of the full game. If you look back at Rutgers' last 6 games, they have trailed by double digits or more at halftime in 4 of those 6 games. They've gotten off to a very slow start. But, we talked about Senior Day. This is obviously Senior Day. This is sold out. The Big Ten Network has their pregame live from the RAC tonight.
Interesting.
Rutgers is completely psyched about that. So there are times when you could be excited and come out and steamroll a team early, or there's times where all that new pressure and the newness can make you start slow. So I just took the long-term approach, and I think Maryland, the better team, top to bottom, both offense and defense. They're 5-5 their last 10 road games straight up. No problems with them winning on the road. I do, again, have Maryland in this game and as a best bet and as a play to my clients.
Wow, look at that, Drew. That's a triple up right there on Maryland. Do you agree with Ralph's take on the Terps?
Yeah, mainly because Rutgers is in free fall right now, losing the last 3 straight, 6 of the last 8. It's a team that, they have had some success this year, but it hasn't been from the free throw line. They struggle from the line. Maryland knocks down their free throws, one of the best teams in the country, off of a loss to Michigan State, which we just previously talked about and how they've been playing. I would look for Maryland to bounce back here. I'm really surprised by this number.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised by it too. But then again, there's just and it's funny. It's actually both of my handicaps in this game are both negative. Like Maryland has not responded well to having to play 40 full minutes this year, and Rutgers I don't think will respond well to having all of the weight of this publicity with the Big Ten preview show and all that fun stuff, all the bells and whistles that go along with being a top team in the Big Ten. I don't think they're ready to handle that yet. That doesn't mean that they won't be at some point in the future. This is a very good and very talented Rutgers team, especially defensively, and that's why I think this game will be close tonight. But oh man, I don't know if I can back. I don't know if I could back Maryland based on what I've seen from Maryland because they just don't put 40 minutes together, Ralph. I just haven't seen them play a complete game yet this season.
I mean, and you look at the schedule: Ohio State, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Penn State, Maryland, Purdue. For you Rutgers fans, we're not bashing you, but here's a stat as well. Rutgers is the only D1 team in the country out of 353 teams that finishes the last 5 regular season against all quad 1 opponents. So, I mean, we've seen their schedule. It's brutal down the stretch. They've had a weaker schedule. They had a very weak schedule, top part where they won those games. The Big Ten schedule is starting to pay back now.
Interesting stuff. All right, good handicaps there on both sides. Let's get the best bets. Drew, I'll start with you. You've got the T-box, sir.
Michigan State, for all the reasons we talked about, man, heading in the right direction. Great guard play. And Sparty is a bet on for me going down the stretch. So Michigan State tonight for me.
Ralph, I know what you're doing, but I want to give you the floor, man. Go ahead, hammer this baby home with the Terps.
Well, the floor is this. I'm going to give a wave to my good friend Drew Martin and say, guys, crossover day.
Yes.
$2 Tuesday. Get Drew's top play at Wager Talk. Normally, you find Drew at Sports Memo. It's an opportunity you don't want to miss. Again, my best bet game 619. Maryland plus the 1. Better team wins the game.
I'm going to the Big Ten tonight. I think Iowa puts a hurting on Purdue at home. Purdue dropped 100 on them in West Lafayette a few weeks ago, and we've seen these revenge games turn around in the other way. And Luka Garza is playing the best basketball of anyone right now in the country, I think. and he is not only a contender for the Naismith, but they're going to give some teams some problems with that up-tempo offense in the NCAA tournament. I don't love the number, and it's going against me. I'm seeing 4.5 right now. I see a couple 5s out there, so we'll go with 5 just to keep it nice and clean. Actually, no, wait. I see a 4.5 at Circa. There you go. Circa's going to give me my 4.5 on Iowa as the Hawkeyes get things done tonight against Purdue, and Iowa continues to be a team that I think is a play on in the NCAA tournament. So that's all we've got for you here on Tuesday. Thanks for watching the Tip-Off Show powered by Wager Talk. Again, my guys hanging out with me, Ralph Michaels. Follow him on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Drew Martin at Drew Martin Bets. I am Jared Smith. Follow me on Twitter at Jared Lee Smith. And it's 2 for Tuesdays, of course, or $2 Tuesdays, I should say, at wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com. So be sure to check that out. Gentlemen, good stuff. Good luck tonight, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.
All right, best of luck.